Hello, welcome to Study Circle. Today we are going to read Class 8 Standard Civics, Chapter 6, Confronting Marginalization. In the previous chapter, we read about two different groups and their experiences of inequality and discrimination. Though powerless, such groups have fought, protested, and struggled against being excluded or dominated by others. Many among them invoke the Constitution to address their concerns. In this way, their fundamental rights are translated into laws. The government also put various efforts to formulate policies for their development. Fundamental rights for marginalized groups. Article 15. It is said that no citizen of India shall be discriminated against on the basis of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. In Article 17, it prohibits the practice of untouchability. This means that no one can prevent Dalits from educating themselves, entering temples, using public facilities, etc. In fact, untouchability is a punishable crime now. In Article 25 to 28, these provide freedom of religion to all citizens that includes the right to practice, profess, and propagate the religion of their choice. In Article 25 and 28, these provides freedom of religion to all the citizens that includes the right to practice, profess, and propagate the religion of their choice. In Article 29 and 30, these provide cultural and educational rights. For example, religious groups like the Muslim and Parsis had the right to be guardians of content of their culture, as well as the right to make decisions on how best this content is to be preserved. By granting these rights, the Constitution tries to ensure that culture of these groups is neither dominated nor wiped out by the culture of the majority community. Invoking fundamental rights. Marginalized people have drawn on the rights into two ways. Firstly, they have forced the government to recognize the injustice done to them. Secondly, they have insisted the government to enforce these laws. Laws for marginalized. The government make laws to protect its citizens. They are specific laws, policies, and schemes for the marginalized in our country. The government makes effort to promote such policies in order to give opportunities to these groups and impart social justice. This could be achieved in the following manner. Promoting welfare. To implement the constitution, both states and central government create specific schemes for implementation in tribal areas and in areas that have a high Dalit population. For example, the government provides free or subsidized hostels for students of Dalit and Adivasi communities so that they can avail of education facilities. End inequity in the system. Reservation policy. In education and government, employment is one tool to eradicate inequality. It is based on an important argument that for centuries sections of population have been denied opportunities to learn and to work in order to develop new skills or vocation, and a democratic government needs to step in and assist these sections. Government across India have their own list of scheduled caste or scheduled tribe and backward and most backward caste. The central government too has its list. Specific laws for protection and welfare for marginalized section. The Scheduled Caste and the Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Act 1989. The history of this act is that it was framed in response to demand made by Dalits and others highlighting the ill treatment and humiliation of Dalits and tribal groups faced in an everyday sense. It acquired a violent character in late 1970s and 1980s. Adivasi people successfully organized themselves and demanded equal rights and for their land and resources to be returned to them. The act distinguishes several levels of crimes. It lists modes of humiliation that are both physically and horrific and morally reprehensible and seeks to punish those who commits any act which is derogatory to human dignity. It lists actions that disposes Dalit and Adivasi for their meagre resources or which force them to perform slave labor. It recognizes that crimes against Dalit and tribal women are of a specific kind and therefore seeks to penalize anyone who assaults or uses force on any woman belonging to a scheduled caste or a scheduled tribe with intent to dishonor her. Employment of manual scavengers and construction of dry latrines Prohibition Act 1993. It prohibits the employment of manual scavengers as well the construction of dry latrines. In 2003, the Safai Karmachari Andolan and 13 other organizations and individuals, including 7 scavengers, filed a PIL in the Supreme Court. The petitioner complained that manual scavenging still existed and it even continued in government undertakings like the railways. The court observed that the number of manual scavengers in India had increased since the 1993 law and directed that every department, ministry of the union and state government to verify the fact within 6 months. If manual scavenging was found to exist, then the government department has to actively take up a time-bound program for their liberation and rehabilitation. Now the Prohibition of Employment as Manual Scavengers and their Rehabilitation Act came into force on 6 December 2003. What is manual scavenging? It refers to the practice of removing human and animal waste excreta using brooms, tin plates, and baskets from dry latrines and carrying it on the head to disposal grounds some distance away. A manual scavenger is the person who does the job of carrying the filth. This job is mainly done by Dalit women and young girls. Related issues. Manual scavengers are exposed to subhuman condition of work and face serious health hazard. They are constantly exposed to infections that affect their eyes, skin, respiratory and gastrointestinal system. They get very low wages for the work they perform. It is against the constitutional mandate. Manual scavengers in different parts of country, the Bhangis in Gujarat, Pakhis in Andhra Pradesh and the Sikkaliars in Tamil Nadu continue to be considered untouchable. Adivasi demands and the 1989 Act. The Adivasi refers to act to defend their right to occupy land that was traditionally theirs. This act confirms the following promises made to tribal people in the constitution. Land belonging to tribal people cannot be sold to or bought by non-tribal people. The tribal people have the right to repossess their land. C.K. Janu, an Adivasi activist, has pointed out that one of the violators of constitutional rights guaranteed to tribal people are governments in various states of India. They allow non-tribal encroachers in the form of timber merchants, paper mills, etc. to exploit tribal land. They forcibly evict tribal people from their traditional forest in process to declaring forest as reserved or as sanctuaries. Scheduled tribes and other traditional forest dwellers. Recognition of Forest Rights Act 2006. The act meant to undo the historical injustice meted out to forest-dwelling population in not recognizing their right to land and resources. It recognized their right to homestead, cultivable and grazing land and to non-timber and forest produce. It also pointed out that the right of forest dwellers, including conservation of forest and the biodiversity also. Interesting points of this chapter is that the term Dalit means broken. It is used to deliberately and actively by groups to highlight the centuries of discrimination they have experienced within the caste system. Shoirabai was the wife of the well-known Bhakti poet Chokha Mila from 4th century Maharashtra. They belonged to Mahar caste, which was at that time considered untouchable. Uma Chakrabarti wrote gendering caste through a feminist lens. According to Andhra Pradesh-based Safai Karmachari Andolan, there are 1 lakh persons from the Dalit communities who continue to be employed in manual scavenging job in this country and who work in 26 lakh private and community dry latrines managed by municipalities. Kabir was 15th century poet and weaver who belonged to the Bhakti tradition. His poetry spoke about his love for the Supreme being free of ritual and priests. He attacked those who attempted to define individuals on the basis of their religious and caste identities. His poetry brings out the powerful idea of the equality of all human beings and their labor.